Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to Fresh Off the Boat. We have a name now. I like this name, it's a good name. So I'm Mo, here with Vlad and Son, as per usual. And yeah,
Yep.
we're having a shorter podcast today. Just
Cram
'cause-
week.
Yeah, exactly, it's exam week, cram week, so, we kind of want to be studying, but this is important too, so we're just making a shorter one. We're not really going to be talking about a lot of entertainment news, but rather a lot more global issues, but not too heavy. It's kind of like a mix between the two, put into an hour.
Well, I
So,
wouldn't really say they're global issues. But,
well, not global issues. but
Issues nonetheless.
issues, some of them at
Yeah.
least. So let's begin with our first topic, I guess. So we briefly mentioned Detroit last week. I can't remember in what context, but we were discussing Detroit's financial situation. So a week ago, they released they revealed a RoboCop statue made completely out of bronze.
And as if you guys don't know, Detroit is one of those cities that actually went bankrupt a few months ago.
So yeah,
It's
it's
a
probably
pretty
not
big achievement.
probably not the best idea to be making giant bronze statue of film characters. Now, I think it's kind of obvious why they would do this. Like their thought process that perhaps a giant RoboCop statue would attract more tourism and bring more money. But do you guys think this is going to backfire on them, or do you think this is a good move?
Well, actually, personally, I don't think it's going to affect Detroit really, because I think this is running on pocket money. It's a private project.
Yeah, I don't know. For me personally, it's like if you have the money to build a statue of RoboCop, you have the money to help people who are broke.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's kind of
Like to me, it's just like that entire kind of priorities that a city should have. I mean, like, what's
Well,
the point?
It's not the city deciding.
Yeah, but I mean, like, okay, these people who built the statue, whatever, it's like, oh, to attract tourism, But it's like, what's the point of tourism if
Tourism in Detroit.
if there's like nothing to see in Detroit because half the city is like, in ruins?
Hey, Detroit's a beautiful place. So. Like
I
I don't
guess you
know,
could call that
I don't
war
know
zone
who
tourism.
wouldn't want to go and visit Detroit.
The thing is, though, I actually
Insane.
feel bad for Detroit. Like, so much money is being wasted in America.
Well, you know why.
don't feel bad for
is so
Detroit.
poor,
Feel bad
right?
for the citizens of Detroit. That's who you should feel bad for.
Well, yeah, but the thing is,
Yeah.
like,
Like Detroit
no.
itself, they're running it into the ground as much as they're primarily responsible. I think.
Well, Detroit at one point was pretty wealthy. You know why it fell down, right?
Yeah, because GM Motors went in the hole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was basically a motor city.
Yeah.
A huge part of its exports were motor equipment, and that fell down real
Well, of
quick,
course, dude.
so-
Like, GM
Now
Motors.
it's just it's kind of an urban sprawl with rundown factories and all. People are pretty poor there. Went bankrupt.
Well, no, dude.
Can't get any worse. Really.
It's the fault of American consumerism. Like, people play this idea of like individual happiness rather than society's happiness, and everybody was demanding cars, and then, GM Motors started opening, countless factories. Detroit became bigger and bigger, and now when we're in recession, nobody can afford cars. What are those people supposed to do?
Well, yeah, but I just have a question. After the car thing after the motor didn't work out, did they change their industrial outputs? Redirect their industry towards something else instead of motor?
You mean Detroit?
Yeah, Detroit.
Pretty sure they haven't.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they don't have anything to, like,
Value.
yeah.
Because I'm reading here, it's more of a service sector instead of the industrial sector that they used to work on. Now it's information technology, finance.
Yeah, but like the biggest issue though is like like when you have like industry, like kind of like a factories, like
Mhm.
like your labor force, is mostly hands-on labor, and I mean like it takes a long time to train these people to become engineers. I mean like
Well, it's mostly the old generation, to be honest.
Yeah, but
New generation's gonna begin. They have new skill sets.
like, would the new generation want to live here? Like think about like how many people moved away from Detroit after the recession, because there were no jobs.
Well, yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah,
What's really interesting to me is that Detroit is actually the American city with the most Summer Olympic bids to have rejected.
Damn, I guess
Whoa.
it sucks to be them.
They've had
It doesn't even have money to
How
manage
many do
itself.
they,
I don't think they have money to organize an Olympic competition. So, honestly, that makes sense.
well, this was like in the 1940s to the 1970s, but still, like, I think that's kind of like a testament to how, how strong Detroit used to be.
That they could before such, yeah.
Well, do you think the Olympics would have helped the financial situation in
No,
Detroit? You know,
no.
it brings quite a lot of money actually.
Yeah, but I mean,
Well,
dude, the thing is though, like we talked about it in like econ, like especially in poorer regions, hosting the Olympics or World Cup, you gotta build infrastructure,
Yeah.
and like take South Africa for example. So many people went to South Africa, it was a huge World Cup,
Yeah.
but now there's stadiums just sitting there empty, and like the thing
Yeah,
is
that's a
like
good point.
America could host the Summer Olympics, that's for sure. But I don't think Detroit has the infrastructure to host it.
Yeah.
With Detroit
Well,
being the motor
They
city
can
and
always
all.
use their old stadiums, honestly, if they have one. Because, South Africa is completely different. They built entire new stadiums.
Well, dude, the issue is though, like I don't know how much you follow, like the World Cup, but like even in places like Brazil, where like there were stadiums, but they're just simply very old stadiums. Most of them couldn't be fixed. Like for most of them, you had to, like actually like completely demolish them and start over because you couldn't fix the pipelines. You couldn't fix. It was, let's say, counterproductive to like renovate them.
Especially like when you think about it, it's Detroit, a state. It's not the entire country itself. And how many arenas would they be able to erect, or stadiums would be able to erect? All they have right now is what? Well, all they would have had back then would be like the Pontiac Silverdome. That's about it.
Well,
Not
yeah,
a lot
it's
to
not
go
even a
off.
state. It's just a single city.
Single city,
And-
even, yeah. Michigan,
yeah.
the entire state, yeah. No, but I mean, like you'd assume it would be Michigan, not.
Well,
Yeah, of course.
see, the thing is though, like I'm looking at the historical population of Detroit, and they peaked in the 1950s with 1.8 million people. Now they're sitting at about, I don't know, like in the actual city at about like 700,000 people.
Damn.
Yeah, see, I'm reading some statistics now. Yeah, there's a bunch of empty houses in Detroit because people are moving out.
Yeah.
They're emigrating out of Detroit.
Exactly.
Probably for the best. But do you think that, with being a motor city, do you think that they would have seen that coming?
No, I don't think so because I think during the early, 20th century, like I don't know, industry was booming so
But all those
much.
things come to an end.
Yeah,
Surely
but-
they'd realize that and like have a backup. Like in the Middle East, there's always a backup. Like I'm not currently aware of what it is, but there are backup plans.
Do you think there's a backup in the Middle East?
I know for Kuwait, definitely, where I come from. Like I'm not sure what it is, unfortunately. I could Google it, but I'll give it a go later. But there is
I'm sure
definitely
Saudi Arabia doesn't have a backup plan.
Saudi Arabia doesn't.
Yeah, like 90% of its industry is on oil. That's gonna run out soon.
Yeah, exactly. So that's why I kind of worry about that. But Kuwait definitely. I'm assuming a number of
Oh,
other
yeah,
Gulf
it-
states do.
It's a small enough country. It could even be considered a city-state, but there are a lot of little different settlements if you count. And it's small enough. It's manageable.
It's manageable, yeah. I don't know.
But with
there's a lot of
with the
leeway, I
magni-
guess you can give to each.
Yeah, but with the magnitude of Saudi Arabia, it's a whole different story. Population's
Slightly.
greater, area's much greater.
That's true. That's true.
Before oil, it was just Bedouins, nomadic people.
Yeah.
So,
But that,
once oil runs
that's
out,
not just in Saudi
we don't
Arabia.
know.
That's everywhere. That's all. That's everywhere in the Middle East. You still actually have a few. Straying off topic a little
Well,
bit. You still have
yeah.
a few.
Do you guys think though, like since we're talking about like ethical implications, do you think it's ethical for the Middle East to like invest so heavily and in a way waste so much money when their future really isn't secure?
Well, I'm sure they are investing money. I could say that the United Arab Emirates.
Oh yeah.
Well, maybe only specifically Dubai. Oil is not their primary export anymore. It's finance, tourism, and Abu Dhabi is the oil sector.
Abu Dhabi's a close second to
pumps
Dubai in
money
terms of
into
tourism
Dubai.
as well. Like to be fair.
The thing is, though, like I don't know, like kind of like when I look at like tourism in the Middle East, like I think it's it's so popular simply because all these massive resorts have been built, and they're always like the highest
Oh, and then
quality.
there's also real estate.
I don't know, man. Like for me, it just seems the money could go to better, in a way. I don't know, humanitarian
Use.
services. Like use exactly.
But actually, I don't know if you noticed, Vlad, but citizens of the UAE, Kuwait, they have pretty good benefits. It's amazing.
Yeah, but like the thing is, like
That's
Like-
citizens specifically.
yeah, the citizens
Let's
specifically. But like
clarify.
I'm talking like my thing is that I feel like a lot of people are thinking that this is gonna be how it's forever. This idea of consumerism. Like
Exactly, that's
like I think it's very similar to how America was like before the recession. Everybody was taking out these huge loans that they couldn't afford, and I feel like the Middle East at one point is just gonna keep buying so much stuff. Like there's the guy who owns like City, like the football club, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He and the guy who owns PSG, the other football club. These are actually the like treasurers, the treasuries of the country, buying foreign assets. And I don't know if
Yeah.
you guys watch, but they're freaking simply just spilling money on everything. I mean, in France, they bought newspapers, they bought TV stations, and they're making a loss on all of these. But to them, it doesn't matter. And
Yeah.
like in my head, it's how much longer can this loss be like neglected
Okay.
in a sense.
Well maintained, well
Yeah.
neglected. Okay,
But of
so
course, you can't really compare the entire country to a scope like New York. It was consumerism is a little less exaggerated in places like the Middle East, but it could happen.
Yeah.
okay, so like okay, so if we're discussing contingency plans like etc. Like what do you think would be the best option for the Middle East right now? Not talking excluding Dubai and Abu Dhabi because those are mainly now tourism. If Dubai is first, Abu Dhabi would be a close second. Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, freaking Qatar, I guess you could even count.
Well, they could
Iraq.
really, diversify their industry right now.
Think you can do that?
Maybe focus more on service sector instead of the industrial sector. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. What about
'Cause
you?
the service sector is, the industrial sector is finite because it's based on raw resources,
Yeah.
and in this case, it's oil, and we know that's not gonna last forever. So
Yeah.
you
So
should really go for a more long-term plan.
okay.
Finances,
so,
maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Real estate.
Real estate. You want to
No.
live there?
For
You'd wanna
me,
live in
for me
Iraq or Saudi
personally,
Arabia?
I think real estate's a really bad investment area. I think real estate is
Well,
like
it's working out pretty well for for Emirates, for Qatar. You got all these big buildings. A lot of people are moving in there, expats.
Okay, maybe Qatar, but
See,
would you
the
want to live
thing
in
is,
Saudi
though,
Arabia?
the thing is, I actually read an article about this on, and the thing is, like, it talked about how if you go to the airport, like in Qatar, for example, right,
Mhm.
all these foreigners, yeah, they drive, amazing cars, Bentleys and stuff, but
Yeah.
all of them can only afford it because they live in Qatar. Like, none of them actually have, that liquid cash in their bank, They're living
Exactly, it works well for the country. so,
Yeah, but the thing is, they're
they
like,
just stay there instead.
I don't know. For me personally, I would go into technology. I think if the Middle East really wants to get ahead, they should establish themselves as the leaders in technological development. Everything from medicine to simple like pleasure technology. I would if
Well, yeah.
If
You
I
mean,
was
like
the middle-
dethroning like Japan or China.
yeah, no, exactly. Like if I had that sort of money along, technology would be my first and number one investment. Like, and obviously through technology, it'd be stuff like education as well. Because I mean, natural resources come and go. More
Yeah.
like more is discovered, etc. But with technology, there's always this constant, need for innovation. And if you are like a nation with the most advanced, universities when it comes to technology, the most advanced
Yeah.
labs, etc., you're gonna not just have the demand of one country, but the demand of the world.
Like we see
But then,
Dubai,
of course,
we,
there's the
we see
problem
Dubai
with
doing this
imports.
actually.
You know, you have to import a lot of raw resources to invest in things like technology, and the
Yeah.
countries they don't have these resources.
But
Well, no,
like,
but we see Dubai
Sand and
doing
rocks,
this though.
literally.
We see Dubai trying to become more than just a tourist destination, becoming the medical center of the world.
yeah, exactly.
Well, yeah, but the reason is it's a tax haven. You have to,
That's yeah.
there are no taxes. And there's also the problem with the Middle East. There's some countries that are moderate, but they're really extremely conservative countries like Saudi Arabia, for example.
Yeah, no, this is exactly why I said, like, would you want to live in Saudi Arabia or would you want to live in Iraq?
Well, yeah, well, Iraq, of course not. It's a war zone right now, but
Okay,
Saudi Arabia.
yeah, Saudi
I'm
Arabia.
talking, let's talk Gulf states specifically. Now we can ignore the Levant for a while,
Uh-huh.
and it's I think politics and really just really extreme conservatism really impedes on development in these countries.
Yeah, but would they change their moral values for a little extra long-term benefit?
Well, once the problem hits them, it will be
Yeah,
too
once the
late,
problem
so,
hits them, yeah, they might be, screwed. But would they suddenly say, let's abolish, any religious law that we've been following for the past
Well, of
hundreds
course,
of years? and
Saudis,
just-
they're very religious people, most of them. And I don't know if you can fix the entire population's viewpoints, but
I mean, yeah, well, I mean, like, surely changing that would cause more problems than they already have.
well, once the problems, the issue's inevitable, it's going to come one.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, I'm saying, like, wouldn't changing their moral values or imposing a different view on the citizens cause more problem than they would already have at that point?
Well, I don't.
I mean, like, okay,
it's
like-
really the
It's like 1 second you've got no money, the next second you've got no money, no real law, plus everyone's angry.
well, and you could also talk about Saudi Arabia. Most of the people, I think it's really the problem with the governments in Saudi Arabia. You have to admit, the monarchy in Saudi Arabia is pretty corrupt.
I can't really comment
And
on
of
that.
course-
I don't know a lot about it. I can't lie.
Well, there's a lot of news about them. Even a prince of Saudi Arabia, commented is that he can't take the government there. It's just so nasty, and he just ran away from Saudi Arabia and lives somewhere else. I don't know where he lives right now.
Uh,
And of course, I think you know about this. There's the Motoween.
oh, well, yeah.
It's a perpetual state of fear, I guess you can say.
I guess. I guess. I don't know, just, yeah. Okay, well, you can move on to the next topic if you guys are ready.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think the next topic really fits well with this topic, to be honest.
Yeah. So, Son, do you want to introduce?
This FIFA, right?
No, it's the Slender Man.
Oh yeah, Slenderman. All right. Well, if you guys don't know, it's a relatively minor story, but I think it's interesting nonetheless.
It did
So
blow up online.
basically, yeah. So basically, two 12-year-old girls, they decided to stab their friend 19 times to sacrifice him to Slenderman, which is a fictional character from a website known as creepypasta.wiki.com, and it's really just a collection of fictional stories made by users.
Mm.
And we found it's really interesting the cult mentality that works here.
Especially among 12-year-olds. And, keyword being fictional, of course. The Slender Man isn't real. And, they I believe the story went that they were... Well, actually, they were pretty nervous, I believe. According to, the reports. That they were sort of, not really fighting, but sort of struggling as to who would stab who and when they would do it. Apparently it was a couple of months in the making. They had their friend over for a sleepover, drew her into the woods. They stabbed her 19 times, but she didn't die, was wounded.
Well, they look pretty sincere, actually.
Yeah.
When they testified. So.
Did they? I don't know. I mean, there's always going to be conflicting reports, aren't there? But yeah,
And they planned it. They planned it since December. It's really.
Yeah,
all
like
elaborately planned.
exactly. But like they never finished the job, of course, because the victim was able to crawl to the side of the road and flag down a passerby on a bicycle, I believe, who called the
Yeah.
cops and the hospital, etc. So,
She's in stable condition now, so it's
yeah,
all good.
yeah. Um, I don't know. Yeah, like when you think about it, it's really scary. Um, I'm I'm all for internet freedom
I think
and
what's really scary
censorship
is
and
not the
everything like
fact
that.
that is not the fact that they did it, but more the fact of how sincere and how brutal it was,
I
and
guess.
how intricately planned it was.
I mean, like I don't know, like what motivated them to do it. I think that's what scares me the most. Like
it's pure cult.
as I was gonna say, like I'm all for internet, not like internet freedom and uncensorship, but perhaps it's. I mean, they're 12. They're not really
Well,
their own persons yet.
there's a pretty large chance of somebody being completely insane like these two, but really
I don't know if they're insane.
it's not
I
the
wouldn't call
problem
them
with
insane.
Slender Man. It's just them, honestly.
No, it's not. I'm not saying. Hang on. It's not that. I don't blame the creator of the Slender Man. I don't blame Creepypasta for anything like that because it's like watching a horror film. Like you don't watch
Yeah.
you don't watch The Exorcist and suddenly make like satanic circles in your room and do all that kind of stuff. It just doesn't happen. But
Well, it's interesting because in the in the 20th century, people would use Freddy Krueger as an excuse for the killings. So
yeah, well, you're always gonna get those wackos, I guess. But I mean, we can't say that this is not completely the internet's fault. That's basically what I'm trying to get at. Like, I'm not trying to blame it all on the internet because it was largely attributed to the girls. Like, it's their fault completely. If I had to pinpoint one person, it would be them. But we can't deny that, obviously, while we can't really blame Creepypasta, it does play a factor, and that's perhaps, the fact that, I don't know, some man is widely known on the internet. Maybe the girls went on, like, I don't know, Reddit or 4chan or something and were trolled. I don't know, like, it just seems, you just can't attribute it to the girls completely.
yeah,
And like I
And
said,
there's-
like I'm all for internet freedom. Like I freaking
of
love the
course,
internet.
yeah.
But there's some things that you just gotta you gotta concede, and that's I think this is one of them.
And I think it's also really interesting how the media managed to sensationalize this. I'm on CNN right now. A related link is, can children understand reality versus fantasy?
yeah.
So I'm pretty sure it's overrunning a little. It's just these two girls. This never happened before.
I don't think. Well, glad you go.
To me, it's like hearing you guys talk about this, like kind of the urge I have to say is, it might be kind of mean, but I just feel people are stupid. Like,
No,
like,
there's nothing wrong with that.
like,
There's nothing wrong with that.
like, no. The thing is, like, I know it sounds really bad,
Condescending.
like condescending, but like, to me, it just feels like, in today's society, being in a way stupid is praised upon rather than looked down upon. Like,
But the thing is, these girls weren't stupid. They were no. I'm pretty sure they had some psychological.
no,
Issues
and like I understand that, but like how like you were saying that like like the, or like the thing about like reality versus like kids handling and stuff because of video games,
Yeah.
and to
Well,
me it's
you know,
just
that's-
Well, the internet, not just speaking.
to me it's just like parents needing a scapegoat for their failures as parents. Like okay, obviously in this case the girls were mentally unstable,
yeah.
but in most cases I think when video games or things in general are blamed, it's just a scapegoat by parents to avoid the blame themselves. I mean, before video
Yeah.
games, it was like violent playground games. Like
Yeah,
Like-
blaming the gun for a shooting.
Yeah, like-
it's kind of like that.
like nowadays it's so I feel like culture's like I feel like yeah these girls obviously were mentally unstable, but I feel like Son mentioned like all these newspapers like overhyping it and making it seem as it's because of video games. Blah, 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 blah. It's finding a scapegoat and ignoring the real problem. But that just means.
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, like, if
Yeah.
you know your kid is let's say unstable, why in the world would you let them play a game that is so, in a way, scary? Like, kids. I don't think
Right.
anybody who's not mentally fit should play something like that because like there's kids who at age 12 are not mature enough, and if you're not mature enough and are mentally unstable, yeah.
Well, yeah, it's like the Connecticut shooting. You guys remember the Connecticut shooting, right?
Yeah.
Sandy Hook.
Sandy
Yeah,
Hook,
you know, the guy, he had mental problems, and the mom knew it, but she kept her gun outside of the holster, outside of the little safe box, and she kept it open in the
Yeah.
house. And no, honestly, you can't blame guns for that. It's just
Um,
pure responsibility.
Yeah, I guess it's just response. I don't know, but is it, whose fault is it? Yeah, obviously it's the shooter's fault, but
Yeah, no, like I think
that's the thing. It's like
creepypasta.
there are always external factors like gun laws and
And this all goes back to creepypasta. You can't blame the website.
No,
You know,
definitely. Like
exactly.
I
They
think
released a
it's
statement as well.
I think it's inappropriate and unethical to blame a producer for something, because like
The content producer, yeah.
yeah, that's like saying
Especially
like
considering that the content is like this isn't the content producer that explicitly states to go and kill your friends.
yeah no
It's
like
like
even if you
fucking fun.
access
in fact,
their
there's a huge
website,
notice that says that all these stories are fictional, complete fiction.
dude, even if
Exactly.
you access their website, the first thing when you click on their website, a pop-up comes saying, "This website contains fictional content that may be too scary for younger readers."
Exactly.
Like they have all these disclaimers, so the company's obviously taking precautions,
Yet you still have people blaming the site, and they're just blaming the
yeah.
site because I guess like there's that surreal factor
Yeah,
with
these
little
stories are
girls
pretty
stabbing
well
their
made.
friends.
I don't know if you've read them, but Sunderland was a really well-made story.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
if
no,
you did-
totally.
And
If you didn't read the notice, really gullible people would be, really naive people would be very prone to believing these kind of things.
You know, they're like Photoshop pictures and everything like that, and then you have like the media, films, games, books, not toys.
Oh yeah,
Slenderman action figures.
that
Um,
app that makes your phone waterproof.
Yeah, all that kind of stuff. We can like scale on your phone, step on your phone, and find out how much you weigh. But yeah, like I think I like it, I think we should really read what or the statement that they've released. Is it on the site right now? Here we go. So it says here in big bold characters, all works presented on this wiki and other sites, including Slenderman, Jeff the Killer, Ben, Sonic EXE, etc., are fictional stories and characters. So there you go. Coming from the horse's mouth, the creator, that this is fiction, it's not reality. And I don't know, like I think honestly, like reading this, you can't see it, but I'm pretty sure that the creator was kind of annoyed. I know I would.
I don't think he commented yet, did he?
No, he released an official statement.
Oh, huh.
Would you like me to link you here?
Did he get any hate mail? Normally that happens.
But no, because like most people understand, like, hey, this ain't his fault. He's just the content creator. In fact, the person that created the Creepypasta wiki didn't create the Slenderman. It was someone else.
Well, the wiki, it's
user
public
submitted.
contribution. Yeah.
It's
Hence
important.
wiki.
That's important to note, exactly. So I don't know. It's just this is like a really touchy subject because you have people who are like, yeah, either screw the internet or, screw the girls. Well, not really screw the girls again. I mean, but or screw gullibleness. Like, where's the line?
Yeah.
Where's the line? Who are we gonna blame here? Are you gonna blame like two 12-year-old girls? Well, maybe. Are you gonna blame their parents? Maybe. Are you gonna blame the site? It's really tough because we just weren't involved.
Well, it'd be hypocritical for us to blame anybody, especially since Vlad mentioned about scapegoating and things.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But no, but when I
I'm
say
not gonna
blame,
comment
I
on
mean,
that.
when I say blame, I mean who's at fault. Because it's not just gonna happen. You don't just say like these things just happen.
Well,
Oops, I stabbed my friend 19
I
times.
guess the two things you can blame is maybe either on the parents or just
Like,
the girls themselves. You know?
we don't need to use the word blame because I understand where Vlad is coming from. And I totally agree that, especially when we can discuss this in a later podcast, like violent video games being scapegoated, for the
Yeah.
to mask the failure of parents. But you don't just stab your friend 19 times in a forest. Like, something needs to
course-
be at fault. And so, what is it in this scenario? Like, what's your
And
final?
of course, there's statistical evidence that disproves that any of this would affect you unless you have some mental problems, really,
Yeah, exactly.
or if you are unusually naive in some way. So
Hey, man, people, like Vlad said, people are stupid.
Yeah.
They'll
Oh, and
eat up anything.
I mean, if
I
you
mean,
want,
this
like for me, if you want to
True.
take a more like conservative approach to this, it's like okay,
Yeah.
to me, if you're gonna blame, creepypasta, or
yeah.
the more specifically a video game for encouraging like bad behavior, then I would not just stop there. Like if you're gonna blame one tiny game, why not blame people like Snooki for being bad influences? You might as well blame everything, like in general. It's like if you're
why not just ban all the violent TV shows,
No,
violent
no.
movies?
not just like if you're gonna sue creepypasta as a company for its content,
Yeah.
you might as well sue all other companies for creating content that might encourage people to do unethical things. Like why stop at one? But
Which
that's
is like everything when you think about it.
yeah. I mean ban freaking TV shows, ban I don't know clothes with any sort of writing on them.
Sooner or later, everyone's gonna be watching Mr. Rogers and stuff like that. Like,
Well, I don't think it's gonna go that far. Slippery slope. We
well,
can't
hey,
do
like
this.
you got some people that believe in that, of course. Some people definitely believe that like everything should be censored, everything should
Yeah.
be to leave in a.
And people
Happy
aren't
campy
getting
community.
dumber. Actually, everybody's getting smarter. If you look at
Mm.
it from a global, well, maybe you had some specific experiences with dumb people, but statistically,
Specific experiences. Make it sound like it's some kind of like traumatizing situation.
well, people are getting smarter. From a
Where did
global
the stupid person
perspective.
touch you?
You can't just focus on one country or one state.
Yeah, no,
You
especially
justify
considering
it.
that
Yeah,
this
no.
is a global, yeah. I mean, you do, yeah. Let's, yeah.
With the internet, information is available everywhere. We're actually, getting more knowledgeable.
It's available everywhere, all the time, 24/7. It's not gonna
If
go
you think
down.
about it, people in the Middle Ages, they were all ignorant, illiterate. It's or it may I don't know 1980s.
See, the thing is,
People are more. I guess you could say people are more cynical these days.
Oh
Huh?
yeah.
honestly, I don't think society's progressed that much.
No, I disagree.
Nah, we've came pretty far.
Yeah, no,
Don't be a
I
pessimist.
disagree. I think that we've come very far as society. We're a lot more pessimistic. We're a lot more cynical and condescending right now than we've ever
Well,
been.
I don't know
before.
if cynicism is a good thing, but we're not.
It's not like
naive,
I'm not praising us. I'm not saying we're
Yeah.
better. But I'm saying that we have definitely, I mean, okay, maybe progressed wouldn't be the right word, but we have made we made definite strides comparatively to the 1980s, but we haven't come, we're not like the alpha, right now.
Well, hopefully things get better. Things just don't stop here.
Hopefully, otherwise we're kind of screwed as the human race. If nothing gets better. Yeah.
All right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
To me, I feel witches have been replaced with other things, and
Witch burning.
yeah,
Was replaced with sacrificial stabbings in the woods.
no, not that. But I just feel, society is the same, except now there's just more. There's different, excuses and different, cover-ups in a sense. I guess you could say.
Well, it's a very complicated issue.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not going to vouch for those tinfoil hat people, but people are, people in the past they were much more prone to believing media or what the government says or what
Ooh.
anybody else says. Them.
I
People
think-
are much more independent. People are much more cynical now.
Are you sure about that?
Now, I don't know if single party state. You know, media was controlled 100% at one point. Everybody believed what the media said. So, and then they would see the. Well, I honestly, it's just much better than before.
Well, you know, like there's actually a thing that talks about this, and it's like, you know, one form of control is where you see like the bars and you know that you're being restricted, you know,
Hmm.
and the other one is when you don't actually know you're being restricted, you know, and like
Well, yeah, but
and like
it's
and
it's better than last.
no, but like no, like I don't know about you, but like I know at least like, you know, like communist Romania, you know, people
Yeah.
knew they were being fed lies, you know, like
What about Russia
Yeah.
TV?
yeah, or like
Well, exactly. You see,
So,
this,
no, so
this
the thing is that I
history
think-
of being lied to makes you very cynical.
I know, but
and everybody's
no, like I think nowadays people are more prone to believing everything because they're more naive in the idea that the world's free and everybody's good.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, but like when I look about like people from like our age, you know, like somebody just reads one article in the Guardian or in the Daily Mail, and
The Onion.
The Onion, yeah. I was
Yeah.
gonna say The Onion.
yeah, and just believe it to be like, you know, freaking like a message from God, you know. Like nobody thinks that, you know, oh my God, these newspapers have bias, you know, or they have their
Guys,
own
hold on a
political
second.
views.
News coming in. According to
actually
The
did a
Onion, Bill
TO
Gates has died.
Like
According to The Onion, Bill Gates is dead, guys. Spread the word.
I actually did a TOK presentation on this. You know, people tend to agree with
you
articles
say the same
that
thing
agree
last
with their
week?
biases. What?
Did you say the same
did-
thing last week?
I did 3 TOK presentations.
Oh, right, yeah, okay, sorry. Okay, never mind. I thought you meant your official one.
No. My official one was the one on Switzerland.
Yeah, this was last
This
week.
one's on
It's like
media.
it's like every episode you're like, you know, actually I did a TOK presentation on this, so.
No. There's one more coming up afterwards if we ever get to talk about it. People, they tend to believe the articles that agree with their biases, with their personal biases. You know, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
Like those people, you know, no matter how bogus the Onion article may be, maybe they don't know it's a satirical website or anything, but as long as it agrees with their views, you know, it's
They'll
a
buy
chance
into
to
it.
be.
I mean, dude, to be honest, when I first read The Onion, I was pretty young, right? And I had no idea what satire meant, and I believed it, you know. And
Well, there's ignorance and then there's just bias,
no, but
personal bias.
yeah. I don't know.
Fortunately, I knew, but that's only because it was told to me, so.
You know,
I
Well,
knew what had been going on there was fake.
Once you start comparing to other articles, you know, you could actually start seeing the satire, how ridiculous it all sounds in the Onion.
you know. I have a question.
Considering that one is far different to the other, yeah.
You got everything but the Onion telling the truth. I think there's a pattern here.
Which one's the odd one out?
No,
One of
guys,
these is not like the other.
It's a conspiracy. They're trying to make The Onion look bad.
But in reality, the Onion's, plot twist, Shyamalan twist, the Onion's the only one reporting the real news. Everything
It's a
else is
tinfoil hat
satire and
people.
fake.
Alright. I think we should move on to FIFA now.
FIFA. World Cup fever.
So yeah,
Yay.
starts in 3 days, man. Starts in 3 days.
Starts in 3 days. So Vlad, you're obviously the most knowledgeable when it comes
I
to
will
football.
be honest, this is going to be one of the most depressing FIFA World Cups in the world.
I
Considering it's hosted in Brazil.
it's beyond ridiculous what's happening right now in Brazil. I mean, I
You know,
don't know if you.
and there were mass riots before this. No World Cup, they say.
I
But
mean,
of course, you know, everybody is aware of this now.
the thing is
Yeah.
though, they're building a World Cup, but they have no infrastructure. They have no public education, no public health system. You know,
Mm-hmm.
no.
They got football though.
And-
They got football.
The thing is though, in a sense, I understand it because you know, football. I don't know if you guys know, but it's a very cultural thing in Brazil. You know,
Yeah.
like extremely cultural. So in a way, it's like you know,
There.
like the government's trying to mask the problems by bringing football. You know.
Yeah, but
It's
you know,
the thing
they
that
can
brings
see
the
through
families
this.
Yeah,
like
but-
you said about the bars.
Yeah, but at the same time, I think it's completely idiotic to host the World Cup, and not just the World Cup, but they're hosting the Olympics as well.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to do this.
To me, it's just
I think statistically, crime went up
yeah,
ever since
because
they announced the FIFA.
it's so idiotic, like and
The
ethically.
cartels are literally preparing for the onslaught of tourists that are going to come to the country.
Yeah, dude, and ethically, it's so wrong as well. You know, I mean, when, like over half your country's living in poverty. You're going to build.
Brazil has more problems than Vietnam. I'll tell you that.
The Brazil stadiums aren't even done.
I mean, let's talk about the fact that, houses are being teared down as well, if you're talking about poverty. Or if you even call them houses. The shelters are being taken down to make way for such stadiums.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's making things, worse in a
It's
way.
why I think that only developed countries should host sporting events until everybody else can catch up.
They should send in an inquiry, like an inquiry group to see if the country's actually prepared for World Cup.
Well, I mean, in one way, you have a country like Qatar, right?
Yeah.
Who right now is
Well, they're planning to revote, aren't they?
well, yeah, well, right now, there's I don't know if you guys know, but there's six official sponsors of the FIFA World Cup, the official ones.
Yeah.
It's Visa, Coca-Cola, Hyundai, Sony, and I can't remember the other two.
McDonald's? No, that's
No.
the
And there's two
That'd be
others.
so ironic.
No,
No, man, McDonald's is the Olympics.
No, but there's two. Anyway, there's two others which I can't name right now.
Yeah,
Wait,
forget
Visa,
about it.
Hyundai, Coca-Cola, Adidas,
Sony.
and one more. I can't remember the last one. And 5 of these official sponsors have actually called for corruption investigations when it comes to the 2022 World Cup.
Mm.
Because,
In Qatar.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the crazy thing about this is that the city in which the final is going to be played in, if it does take place in Qatar, right,
Yeah.
does not even exist.
Well, Qatar can do it,
No,
let's be
like-
honest.
like,
Let's be
obviously
realistic.
Qatar can do
Qatar
it.
is insanely rich.
But see, the thing is, though, in
It's the
Qatar,
highest GDP per capita
but see,
in the world.
the thing in Qatar, it's not about them not doing it. It's about the fact that they're using slavery.
Oh, well, yeah, if you mentioned slavery, then of course there's a huge human rights problem.
Yeah.
And that's why they're planning to revote this. They're saying it's unethical to let Qatar do any of this.
Yeah.
Or
Or
it's okay for Brazil to do it, though, apparently.
what's the difference is, though? In Brazil, it's unethical because, they're, in a way, not using funds for society's best interest,
Yeah.
In Qatar, it's not that
It is.
issue. In Qatar, the issue, the fact they're bringing in slaves from, continental Asia, like Eastern Asia, right?
Yeah.
Taking away their passports and refusing to let them leave. And
Same thing happens in Dubai, actually.
Mm.
Pakistani
Yeah.
workers,
Pakistan,
They live in
yeah,
deplorable conditions. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you've noticed a trend here. I just want to point this out. All the countries that are going to host the FIFA World Cup soon, they're all controversial and somehow.
yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know, like...
Well,
2018 is going to be
it's-
hosted by Russia.
it's kind of
with
tough
Crimean
to do-
crisis right now.
well,
I mean,
Ukrainian
like,
crisis.
I think that it's kind of tough to do a giant sporting event clean.
well, I think
Something
it's
like the World
doable.
Cup or the Olympics.
No,
No, but
Vancouver did
you've
it
got
well.
this giant
Vancouver.
media spotlight on you. Like, the second you do something, slightly unethical or slightly shady, it's going to be overblown into a big story because it's the World Cup or because
But you
it's
have
the
to admit,
Olympics.
Russia and Qatar and Brazil, they're all pretty
Yeah.
shady.
And
Yeah.
I mean, dude,
I mean, you didn't see any problems with Vancouver, did you?
or
That's
or-
Canada, it's different.
or just to kind of get back at Qatar, like we're talking about this ethical implication. I mean, though, Qatar isn't just using slavery; they've actually refused foreigners to leave the country. Like there was this
Yeah.
footballer who played in Qatar, and Qatar literally refused to let him leave.
Yeah.
He was just not allowed to leave.
Yay.
Like his club didn't pay him his wages, so he wanted to leave the country, and they would not leave because I don't know if
Let
you
him
guys
leave,
know,
yeah.
but in Qatar there's the kafala system, in which for an immigrant to leave, their employer must agree for them to be
Oh,
leaving
wow.
the country.
Yeah.
So literally, he cannot leave because his employer's like, no, you're staying.
Whoa. At which point, if he's unemployed, the airport security must decide to let him leave or not.
No, literally they had to bring in
Okay. Yeah.
an actual government.
Representative.
Yeah, it's crazy because Son mentioned all these really shady countries who could be using their money for so many other better things, Like the Sochi Olympic, that's 50 billion that could have gone into Russia's infrastructure.
Yeah, and Sochi, it was the most expensive Olympics.
But I mean, okay,
so
I mean,
far.
I mean, I guess in a way we have to acknowledge the fact that in Sochi they actually
They
had to
import
build.
snow from Norway.
No, but that in actual Sochi they had to build a city, literally, compared to like
Well, a village.
yeah, well, a
Not
village.
an entire city.
But like if you look at
Everybody had to build a village
other
for Olympics.
Yeah, the Olympic Village. Yeah, like little kind of place where all the Olympians stay.
yeah
Yo, that's a lot of money that could be invested
exactly.
in Russia to get a freaking English cinema somewhere. God,
The thing is,
Well, I don't know.
I'm still
have you guys
fighting for
been-
this.
Have you guys been to cities outside of Moscow and Russia?
yeah,
No.
I'll
I
tell
only
you
just
right
got here.
now. Once you cross the city limits, you will see the difference immediately.
yeah.
You know, the roads, they automatically lose their lanes. It's all cracked. You see a pothole every 2 seconds, And then if you go deeper into Siberia,
Oh my god.
What would you? All right. Okay.
No, but it's crazy. Like, in my mind, I think only countries with the infrastructure to hold the World Cup right now should be allowed to bid, or like
Yeah.
to me, it's so stupid that South Africa hosted the World Cup, because literally there's stadiums that can fit 80,000 people in the middle of nowhere in South Africa.
and yeah, they have pretty crazy crime rates.
Yeah, I don't know. But these
They could have taken care of that.
yeah.
And actually, I don't know if you guys know this, but in Vietnam, they were planning to host kind of Pan-Asian games in the capital. We all know we can all agree that Vietnam is not the best place to do anything that requires a lot of money, and the government only realized that after five years of developing the infrastructure to do so. So
Well,
they
that's not
decided
bad.
to
At least
scrap
they
the project,
At least they got it eventually.
give it to Australia instead.
No, like, definitely. Like I think Japan.
G'day, mate.
I think that was a smart move. Vietnam is not,
Yeah.
No, I think
It's a
countries like
motorcycle
Japan, Australia, South Korea. Okay, if they actually want to get the World Cup from its usual hosts, in other words, Europe, right? I
Yeah.
think the United States, Canada, South Korea, Japan, Australia would all be.
Argentina is actually capable of doing so. It has a higher HDI than most of the other.
It does, but the
in
thing
South
is,
America.
the thing is, Son, the issue with Argentina and most of South America isn't the fact that. See, the issue though with South America is the fact that the stadiums are so old. You understand? That
Yeah.
like that's the biggest issue. The fact that stadiums are so old. Like
It's like Aztec temples up there.
yeah, and like I said, the biggest issue is that after these sporting events, there's nobody to use the stadiums.
Mhm.
Sort of just collects dust,
Yeah, I mean, like Mr. Weiss mentioned in econ class that even Beijing, which is a huge city, right?
Yeah.
The stadium after the Olympics isn't used because nobody fills it up ever. Like, of course, the
Looking
beautiful.
back, there was a lot of hype for that Olympics, wasn't there?
Of course.
Of course, Olympics is a pretty major.
No, but I mean, for that one, specifically, I don't know why.
I think every Olympic
Yes, it
/
was.
World Cup receives crazy hype.
Yeah, of course. But, I mean, I don't know why. That one stands out prominently in my mind. I don't know
Well,
why.
if you take a ghetto country, well, not a ghetto country, but a country that gets a lot of news coverage, then it's.
I
more
think it's also
interesting,
because China, had this image of super closed off communist society.
Ah,
Mhm.
fair enough.
Well, after Beijing Olympics were pretty successful.
They were. So was the London one, to be fair. At least I think.
Yeah. But Japan does have its problems, but they're not as deep.
No, obviously, but I mean,
I think that all World Cup and all Olympics should be hosted in Canada from now on.
I mean,
Do you guys know they have a
one
military?
bobsled incident?
but like you guys do know that there's actually a backup plan. America has actually Mr. Reese told me this again. Literally, America.
Yeah, it's already ready.
Yeah.
They could do it in
No,
an
no.
instant.
The thing is, America puts a bid in for every sporting event. They've literally said if any country fails to comply, to create the event, we will host it for them.
Well, yeah, they're capable of doing
For
so.
them.
They could do that
Yeah.
immediately. They don't need any
Well, like host
preparation.
the events.
But
They
not
have
for
the
them.
infrastructure.
No, not for them. Okay, but like, okay, for example, let's say like I don't know, two
Yeah,
months
like
ago,
Brazil drops out
Yeah.
like last minute.
like let's say okay, let's say 2 months ago, you know, FIFA went to
Yeah.
Brazil, saw like that the situation was even worse than it is right now. You know, even worse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
They could have just been okay, America, you're hosting the World Cup now. America could be prepared in a month. Like hands down, they have the stadiums.
yeah.
Just
But
Got
not
the
for
roads.
Brazil.
They got, all
It's
they
for
gotta
America.
do is fix their airports and they're good.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. I mean, it's kind of amazing when you think about how America would be able to get up like that quick, you know.
It really
See,
should. It's paramount. of
and
their
the difference is
economical
America would actually make
ability.
profit from this.
Yeah.
Like Brazil's not gonna make any profit. America will.
And they're only one of the capable, you know, countries that I feel would be, you know, the right pick.
All right.
Anybody who is an OECD, I guess.
So like,
Huh.
I have a question.
Yeah.
What do you guys think? You know, when talking about money, you know, do you think I don't know, society should focus on one's personal pleasure, society's pleasure or the country's pleasure, you know?
Well, that's how capitalism works. You know, people they do it for themselves, but
Yeah.
unknowingly it benefits the entire country.
Well, like what I'm trying to tell you is like,
And-
what like, in
What's-
your
what's the
opinion,
focus?
what would be the most effective way to go about it?
I think they, I think it would depend on the country. To be honest, I think there's a set way of doing things. Like it really depends on where
Like,
you are and what
Let's
kind
be
of people
honest.
you've
No,
got.
communism. It's a really good idea. You know, ideally.
Yeah.
Not really
But
executed so well.
It doesn't work. It's pretty deeply engraved in human nature. You know.
Yeah, like it's good on paper. Let's say that.
Greed runs the world. As you
Well, okay, I have another question for you. Do you think a dictator would ever actually be a good choice?
I guess in certain
Like,
times, you know.
like,
Really,
like for example, take right now. Let's say like I don't know, like let's take a really bad country, a really bad situation. Hit me up with something. I don't know.
well,
Brazil, for example, right? If you guys if Brazil right now had a dictator rise up, right? Stop, stay. Okay, like we're not gonna host the Olympics. Take them away from us, right? Literally,
Mhm.
put Brazil on a leash, on a really hard leash, but there was an improvement in the people's lives of Brazil. Okay, yeah, he took away competitive parties, all this stuff, but there was actually an improvement in people's lives. Would you say, you know what? Okay, he's getting the job done. Let him do his job. He's actually helping the majority.
well, it would really work depending on the dictator himself. You know, to
Yeah.
flip a coin.
No, but I'm talking this very hypothetical. Actually,
Well, if it was a good dictator, yeah.
Like-
if the people
like Tito style
the
dictator.
U.S. citizens, democracy is really deeply engraved, liberty and all of that, you know. But from developing countries, maybe they can't make the choice themselves.
Well, what about you?
Like Vietnam is a very authoritarian country, you know. If we had democracy, it would.
No, understand.
Yeah.
I think Romania should have a dictatorship.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
You try to
You've
promote yourself.
No.
You've been vocal about that. Yeah.
No.
You've been very vocal about that.
No, I mean, I've talked to you guys about this. Like, I think right now there's
It's the
not
ideal way to go for you.
not one party strong enough, to stand
Totally,
up.
like,
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
no control.
I don't think compared to America, like Sam brought up, where that feeling of democracy is in people. I don't think people in Romania have any sort of allegiance to any ideal. And
Oh yeah.
and to be honest, I actually think
America, land of the freedom.
Romanians would actually happily take a dictator as long as he brought positive change. Whether he was, atheist, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, conservative, whatever you want him to be, Like that's and I think it's a cultural thing, I'm not sure how
I
it's
guess,
for other countries.
yeah. I mean, I don't. Yeah, like I wouldn't see an issue in that. Like so long, I think like any real nation could adapt to a dictator that brings about positive change.
Yeah.
Well, historically the U.S. was never a monarchy. In fact, the entire reason why people settled there was to escape persecution in countries like Britain
Yep.
and Portugal, and Spain. They literally escaped from absolutism, authoritarian regimes, and so it's this entire culture that's been building for a couple of years.
Yeah.
A
For
couple of
centuries.
years.
For centuries.
A couple of years.
You know, just 1 or
like
2 years.
3 years. They're taking their time. Really, I think it's coming up. But obviously, people settling in the new world, the United
Yeah.
States. Let's take a look deeper now. Moving to our final sort of topic / preview thing. California, Los Angeles, California, E3. What do you guys think?
Well, I'm looking at the live blog right now. They just revealed Assassin's Creed Unity and Call of Duty. What's this?
Advanced Warfare, yeah.
Warfare.
Yeah. There's a lot of things going on in E3. Literally, the Microsoft conference is happening as of our recording. So,
This is just the beginning.
this is just the beginning. Like we're going to definitely be back next week,
Yeah.
or in a few days actually.
More
To give
details.
you guys the full sort of recap, we're gonna dedicate a lot of the next show to E3. We're gonna discuss the news that came out of there. It's gonna discuss the games, pretty much everything. What we're excited for, what pleased us, what disappointed us. So that's something you guys can look forward to next week. And as usual, we'll have our global issues to begin, and then we'll end with E3 on a more
Yeah.
casual.
This week was kind of
No.
like a cram session. I think next week we'll go back to this idea of ethics and everything, and then
Yeah,
E3.
Yeah, we'll have our typical 2-hour shift next.
Yeah.
Yeah, and our 2-hour shift, 4-hour week, kind of, yeah. It'll be a lot less rushed,
Yeah.
sort of take our time with things a bit more. But we apologize for the sort of short show, but we know we do want to go get good grades in our exams, so
I don't want to be a garbage man.
yes, so yeah.
Oh god.
All right.
Hey, as long as we don't become garbage men.
It's all good. It's all good. Okay, but yeah, definitely E3. One of the big things to look forward to in next week's show.
Yep.
All
All right, guys. So yeah, we're gonna wrap it up here. I'm Mo. It's Vlad. It's San, and thanks for watching. We're fresh off the boat, and we'll see you later.
Bye bye.